Welcome or welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to talk about something that people ask me about all the time. What's that little half line there on my chart, right? That's called a hanging gate, and they're actually very important for you in terms of understanding your design and understanding your relationships with other people. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm excited to share a bunch of beautiful illustrations with you today because I realized that they would be super helpful for understanding what we're talking about today. And all of these illustrations come from an ebook that I have called Transform Your Life with Human Design. It's a 76-page ebook, and it also comes with the deep dive journal that helps you to really integrate what it is that you're going through as you're going through the book. So if you're interested in that, in the description, I will put the link for where you can go and get it. It's like $17. It's like such a steal for what it is. So I encourage you to go and get it. Okay, so this first illustration we have is just showing you what a hanging gate is on your chart. So the arrows are pointing to the different gates that are only defined on one half of a channel, right? So you can see here the 16, which is coming off the throat here, right? So the 16, that's a hanging gate. There's the 63, which is up here in the left brain. That's a hanging gate. The 60, that's all the way down on the bottom on the root, that's a hanging gate. So these are all hanging gates because the gate that's on the other side of that channel is not defined. It's not colored in. So a few things to know about hanging gates is we all have them, right? Some people have more than others. It really depends on the definition in their chart. It really depends on the specifics of their chart. But some people have a whole bunch of them. And then some people have fewer of them. So before we dive into more of the specifics of that, but I do have a bunch of illustrations to show you, let's take a look at where they come from. This is an image of the Human Design Mandala, and the arrows are pointing to where the planetary symbols are in the Human Design Mandala. So let's just unpack this for a little bit, okay? So the very outer circle is the quarters of the year according to Human Design. Inside of that are the astrological signs that go with those quarters of the year. Inside of that are the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. Okay. Inside of that are the gates, the numbers of the gates. And then you'll see all of the different like pie marks, right? Those are actually the gates. And inside of there, you can see that there are little symbols. So those are all the planetary symbols. So the way that your chart gets made is by looking at where the planets are when you're born, which is the black numbers on a chart, and in 88 days prior, which are the red numbers. And you put those two together, and that's what creates your Human Design chart. So here you can see in the planetary symbols, some of them are black and some of them are red, which would indicate, which side they're on, right? Okay, so this is where it all comes from, is where are the planets in the gates during those two special times of your life. So this next one really shows us where the relationship between the gates and the planets in a chart. So whatever way you look at your chart, okay, whatever the printout is, as long as you're not going to a super esoteric chart, but kind of the regular charts, right? The mandala charts and the body graph charts, and even the circuits will have the same information, but it's presented differently. So I wanted to show you what this looks like. So this top image, right, is like the mandala that we just saw a second ago, right? It's got the same concentric circles presenting the same information. Then the one underneath that is probably what you're more familiar with, right? So the body graph is in the middle, and then you've got the black numbers over on the right, you've got the red numbers over on the left. So what you're seeing there is with those black numbers, the inside of that are the planetary symbols. So it starts with the sun, and then it goes to the earth, and then it goes to the nodes, and so on. And the ordering of the planets is exactly the same on both sides of the chart here, right? But then those are related to where they show up on the body graph. So that's what this particular image is showing you. So if we look at the top one, right, personality, conscious, the black numbers get called different things in different kinds of software. Unless you're really, really deep into human design, I wouldn't suggest that you spend a lot of time thinking about the difference between what's in the black and what's in the red. You can get to that as you come to understand your design better. But initially, you really just want to focus on the planets and what gate they're in, okay? And then how that creates definition for you, like with your channels, your hanging gates, and your centers. Okay, so you can see here that we've got the Earth in gate 5, which is at the top, represented there. And then we also have the unconscious Earth in gate 64, and that's why it's red, okay, at the top. Then it's the same information, just presented differently on the bottom part of this illustration. Just as a reminder, everyone has the whole chart in their energy field, okay? So your energy field, okay, has the entire human design energy system operating inside of it. What's different, what makes your chart different than mine, different than your partners or your kids or your moms or the person you work with or, your neighbor, whatever, what makes them different is where it's colored in and where it's white. So you just learned how it gets colored in, okay, is where the planets are in the gates when you're born and 88 days prior. So that differs for everybody. Okay, so that's what makes it different. But just remember, even though it's white in your chart, you still have that energy and you have experienced it many, many, many different times. And this is super important for us to understand how hanging gates work. If we just go back briefly to this illustration of hanging gates, right? You can see it says here at the bottom, hanging gates seek out and attract the energy of their mates. Not only do they do that, but when they find them, they amplify them. Okay, so what's interesting about this is that you may actually be more familiar with the energy of the mate of a hanging gate than you are with the one that you have defined in your chart, because you'll seek it out. When you find it, you're going to amplify it. Okay, you're going to take it in and you're going to amplify it. So it's not going to be sustainable. You're only going to feel it for a certain amount of time. But you will have sometimes a stronger experience of that energy than of the part that's defined. So if you look at this illustration here, you can see over on the left-hand side of it, the gate 16, right, which is coming off the throat, its mate is the gate 48. Okay, so the 48 is on the spleen center, and so that 16 is always looking for the energy of that gate 48 because it wants to have that experience of meeting this other energy. We call it an electromagnetic. So electromagnetics are awesome. Let me just explain what they are a little bit. So, like I said, you pick it up and you amplify it. And what happens when you do that, and especially if two people have just two hanging gates, right? Because even if somebody has a channel, you'll pick it up and amplify it, but that's too complicated. We're not going there today. Let's say somebody's got like the 16 and I've got the 48. So I'm always looking for that 16, right? Because it also helps me get energy to the throat, which is good for me because I have an open throat. But anyway, you're always looking for the other half of that channel. And when you do, you get access to energy that you don't have on your own. All of a sudden, sometimes you start having centers defined that otherwise aren't defined, not always, but sometimes. And then you can get like a lot of energy flowing through your system that you don't have when you're just on your own. And this is a lot of times what we consider chemistry. Okay, chemistry, because there's just this kind of force that you feel when you're with them. You want to experiencing that energy. And it's chemistry, and it's not just romantic. Definitely, if I do a relationship reading and I put the two charts together, I definitely want to see electromagnetic, because that's part of what gives juice to a relationship is these electromagnetics. And that chemistry can feel really good, right? And it can feel really good among friends as well, because it will influence the circuitry of what you have access to. It's great for partnerships of all different kinds. I'll just give a simple example. Like I have a super good friend. She and I both have open throats, which is actually kind of unusual. Only about 12, 13% of people have open throats. But anyway, she and I have open throats. But we have an electromagnetic so that when we're together, both of us get our throat defined. And when I discovered this was kind of early on when I was learning how to read charts, I mentioned this to my friend and she was like, oh my gosh, that why we like to talk so much when we're together? I said, yeah, I think so. Not only that, but she shared that sometimes when she and I are talking a lot, things are really clear. She feels really articulate. She's able to kind of get things out. And then when she goes away and is more like on her own, then it's harder for her to remember what it was we were talking about. Interesting, right? Because that means that that energy of the defined throat is there temporarily, but we can't sustain it because it's open in our charts. So this is why we like to be around those people, because they kind of keep re-stimulating our access to that energy. So let's talk about a different aspect of definition just quickly here, because we're going to take a look at it and it'll be important for us as we're looking at this question about hanging gates. So there are really 4 different kinds of what we call definition. One is single definition, which is where all of the centers that are defined are all connected to each other. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. A split definition is when there are 2 different constellations of centers that are connected to each other, but those 2 constellations are not connected to each other. Okay, and I'll show you a few examples of that. A triple split, same idea. There are 3 different constellations of centers that are connected to each other, but the different constellations are not. And then there's a quadruple split, and I have one of those to show you, which was where there are 4 different constellations, but they're all separate from each other. So let's just take a look at this this image right here. So this person has a single definition. If you take a look at this, you'll see, and I'm just going to look at it here too so I can walk you through this. So you can see here, this person's got a defined throat, right? And they've got all these activations on their throat. And their throat's getting defined by both by that 1333, which is coming from the G center, and then also from, it's actually on the side of the body, the 3420, which is the channel of the manifesting generator. So you can see that the throat is connected to the sacral, is connected to the G center over here, and then over here is connected to the emotional solar plexus through the 3536. So this person, that means that they have access to all of their energy, all of the definition that they have all the time. It's all circulating to each other, right? This is a very powerful configuration. Then we take a look at this one. This person has a split definition. So you can see here the throat and the G center are connected to each other through that 1-8. Okay. And then if you go lower down, you can see the root center is connected to the sacral through that 952. But those 2 constellations of centers are not connected to each other. So this person is always going to be looking for somebody who has that 2, which is on the G, or that 29, which is on the sacral, which is going to all of a sudden be like all this energy is going to be running up and down the central channel. So they're always going to be kind of seeking out somebody who has that. Now there are other options as well, but when you have a split definition, and split definition is common, okay? I don't know if it's the most common, but it certainly seems to be the most common among those I have done readings for. I don't have anything conclusive to tell you about that, but it does seem to be extremely common. And people who have a split definition, so according to the story of human design, is that they really appreciate partnership, particularly somebody who can bridge that split so that all their energy runs on a regular basis. Now, if we take a look at this one also has a split definition. So you can see the head is connected to the ajna, is connected to the throat, and then the throat is connected to the emotional solar plexus over here, okay? So we've got those 4 centers are all connected to each other. But then we've got the will center connected to the spleen over here, right? And they're kind of on their own. So this person is going to always be kind of looking for somebody that's going to hook those up together. So for example, the gate 21, which is going to connect that throat to the will center, then all of a sudden it's going to be starting to work. Or the gate 37, they're going to be seeking that out. Now, you can still be seeking out the energy of any of the hanging gates, but especially when you have a split, you're going to be looking for somebody who who bridges that split. Now let's talk about a different situation. So this person also has a split definition, but what I want to point out here is they have the gate 6 that's hanging on that emotional solar plexus. Now this particular configuration can be pretty juicy if they connect with somebody who has the 59, because that's known as the channel of mating, or in traditional human design, or the channel of love and war in traditional human design. But it has a sexual component to it, and the 6 is about the intimacy and the emotional quality of entering into a sexual relationship. And the 59 in traditional human design is about sexuality. Now, this has kind of been elevated and reconsidered in quantum human design as sustainability, and it does have to do with providing for the tribe. But there's definitely a sexual attraction energy in this channel, okay? So this person who has the 6, they're going to be looking for that 59. And somebody who has the 59 and not the 6 is going to be looking for that 6, because you put those two together and you've got fireworks, provided that these people are actually going to be in a good place with each other, having a sexual relationship. And that's kind of what that 6 should be checking out, because the 6 is like, is intimacy with this person going to be good for me or not, right? And am I even going to have intimacy if I have a sexual relationship with this person? Because, of course, there's plenty of people who have sexual relationships and they're not particularly intimate with each other, okay? So it's a good place to be really kind of paying attention. And there's a few different places like this on the chart, but I wanted to just point that one out because that's kind of a biggie. Okay. So this is a very different looking chart, right? So this is single definition. She just has 2 centers defined and 1 channel. So whenever you see a chart like this, there's going to be a lot of hanging gates. Okay. Now she could have even more, but you can see here she's got some of the hanging gates are multiply defined. Anytime that you see the red and the black right next to each other, like here on the 28 and on the 32, and also on the 59, you can see that those are where there are planets in there more than once. Different planets are the same planet, so she's got multiple activation in one gate. Anytime you see that, just as a side note, that means it's a major theme for you. So check that out. But just if you take a look at this, you can see that there's a lot of places where she can have an electromagnetic with somebody because she has so many hanging gates. And what this can mean for her is just that she can get really stimulated and get really activated when she's with other people, especially with a group. Now, when she's got so much openness, that can be really juicy and exciting in the right situation, but it can also be really overwhelming if it's not such a great situation. So this person needs to make sure that she's doing a lot of really regular energetic hygiene to make sure that she is clearing out, especially if she's been in a situation that didn't feel so good, just clearing out all that other people's energy so that she can get more in touch with her own. Now this person is a quadruple split, and I wanted to show you one of these. So let's take a look here. You can see that the ajna and the throat are connected here through the 4323, right? And then you've got the G center and the sacral center connected by 2 channels, actually, the 214 and the 2946. There's 2 channels that go from that sacral to the G center. So those are connected to each other. And then you've got this will over here and the spleen, like we saw in a previous one, right? Those are connected to each other. And then you've got the emotional solar plexus over here and the root, and they're connected to each other. But she's got 4 different constellations that are not connected to each other. So a person like this is going to feel really a lot of energy when she's with a group of people. Because if you're a triple split or quadruple split, what happens when you're with a group of people is all of a sudden all those different constellations start to connect with each other, right? Because chances are when you're like, you're at a party or you're at an event or you're at a concert or in a restaurant or in any kind of a situation where you're around a bunch of people, you're going to really be picking that up and amplifying it, and it's all going to be flowing. Then we have a reflector, okay? We have a reflector. I really wanted to show you this. So this person is only hanging gates. right? They have no channels and no centers that are defined. So when you see a reflector chart, one thing you'll notice with this person is you can see over here on the right-hand side of the chart, she's got 4 activations in the gate 18. Okay, it's not unusual in a reflector chart to see a bunch of activations in a smaller number of gates. So you can see she's got that she's got Pluto twice, she's got Mercury and the Sun in the 10, she's got the Moon and the North Node down there in the 33. Oh yeah, twice. So you can see she's got multiple activations in a fewer number of gates. And that means those gates are going to be super, super important for her in terms of the themes of her life, right? So when you see something like this, or even with our friend before who had the two centers but with one channel, right? Same thing with her. She had multiple activations in a certain number of gates, and those are going to be major themes for her. So just summarizing, hanging gates are a beautiful way that we connect with other people, and we have an electromagnetic charge when we get with them, because we start to gain access to energy that we don't typically have on our own. And so we can get really interested in that. Okay, we really like that. And you may know the energy of the mate of your hanging gate better than your own, because you habitually take it in and amplify it whenever you're around it. And so your feeling of it might actually be even stronger. Some of those electromagnetics are going to be more compelling than others. Like, for example, I have an open throat. Anything that helps me get a definition to my throat, I'm going to be attracted to. Anything that helps me get a motor to the throat, I'm going to be super attracted to. That 59.6 that I was talking about, that's going to be compelling for if you have a configuration like that. So there are certain ones that are more compelling than others. Others you might not really notice all that much at all. You're not going to know if somebody has this or not until you check the charts, honestly. So that's one of the reasons it's fun to, run the charts of lots of people, and you can find out what kind of electromagnetics you have with each other. Just a caution here, do not mistake electromagnetic chemistry for love, because it's not. It's not love, okay? It's electromagnetic chemistry. It can feel compelling. It can feel juicy, but make sure you like somebody. Check out to see if you're compatible. Certainly before you actually really dive in and start a relationship, check it out. Like don't be stupid. Be drawn by this sense of chemistry. But it's a wonderful thing to have with people that you work with. Like I said, it's a wonderful thing that I have with this best friend of mine. I have a really great electromagnetic with my kid. I have several actually. So you can look at ones that you've had with your family, with people you grew up with, people that you live around. Those are like really important ones, because you will be picking them up and amplifying them on a regular basis. So they will be pretty influential for you. So this is one of those fun places where you can have a little treasure hunt with your own human design chart and those with the people who are closest to you. So as a reminder, all of these illustrations, well, not the chart ones, but the really pretty ones, all came from Transform Your Life with Human Design, which is a beautiful ebook that I created. And it's a small investment. It's like $17. And I will put the link here at the end and down in the description. And I encourage you to go get it if you're interested in having kind of a very visual step-by-step through all of the fundamentals of human design, because it includes all of that. Okay. Many blessings. Much love. Bye for now.